Hi there. So we have our Trello card submission form over here. I'm going to click and we'll open that form and see what it looks like. So we have these cards that we can add with title and description. Now if we go back to our field editor over here, on the card, let's say we want to add a drop-down option for who to assign this card to. So we could add a field and we will choose a select drop-down and we'll say assignees, and we'll put that on the card, and you can see down here we have the add options button. If we add this, we could say Sarah, Sally, Michael, or Brian, and you'll see over here now we have these options where the person can choose Sally, Brian, Michael, etc. Now that's one way of doing it, but the question was, can we do this dynamically? Now there's a few ways of doing this. One is we could change the data type from a string, or basically just selecting text. We could change this to a content reference, and then we could choose the reference type, and we could say we actually want to grab some stuff from the database that we've added into the platform. So we could create our own type of, let's say, employee or assignee or something, and then we could just make it so it's a drop down that gets populated from all of the assignees that we create in the database. That's super easy and comes with a whole bunch of other great benefits. So I can show you an example. We could just click person and we could have the select drop down, and if we just reset the preview here because we've changed it a bit, you'd see we'd have all of the people that are in the database. So every time we fill in a form, it will create a new person because we've decided to do that up here, and those people could then be selected. And if we wanted to, we could restrict this so it's not just every person in the database. We could add a filter rule and say we only want to find people who are tagged as employees or something like that, or over a certain age, or whatever. Now that's another option, but the other question that was asked was, can we populate these options to the user from an external URL, to which we can do that also. So if we change this back to just text, instead of adding options manually here, you'll see there's an option for an async options URL. And here we can just paste in the URL of where we want to get that data. Now it might be a CSV file or another file or something online, but you can also, if we hit save here, you can also create an endpoint in the platform. So if we go back here and we go to apps and we go to endpoints and webhooks, we'll create a new endpoint and we'll call this the assignees, that's how you spell it, dynamic options, just for lack of a better word. So we'll create that, and it'll create an action for us, which allows us to run our own custom code. You can do really cool things with this. You can give these actions permissions. They can edit content, create content. They have full access to the SDK, and they run as a serverless web function. But what we're going to do is something really simple. We're going to create a options array, and we're going to return that array. And let's just add a few in here. So we'll say push, we'll say Batman, options.push, Spider-Man, options.push, Wonder Woman, and just to be fancy, let's do push. We'll push an object with a title of Superman, and we'll put the value as Clark Kent. So Superman's what's going to be displayed to the user in the dropdown, and Clark Kent's the value we're actually going to store into the database. So we're going to hit save, and if we go to testing and we'll show the webhook details, we're going to grab this URL and just see what happens if we open it up. Now this URL is going to say we have to be authenticated, we're not logged in, and because our form is for people who aren't going to be logged in as well, it's not going to be able to load any of these information from the database because it's not going to be able to access it. So if we go back here and we change this to be public, which is totally fine because we know what we're doing and we're not giving out any confidential information really. If we go back to that URL and we hit refresh now, we should get our options. So you can see here we've got Batman, Spider-Man, Wonder Woman, and Superman, which is really going to store as Clark Kent. So I'm going to copy this URL. We'll go back to our forms. We'll go back to our form over here. We'll go to assignees, and in the async options URL, we're going to paste this in. We'll just reset to have a look here, and you'll see it loads up, and you've got Batman, Spider-Man, Wonder Woman, and Superman. And if we open the data model down here, you'll see that as we change these, it's actually changing the data. So Spider-Man, Wonder Woman, and if we change to Superman, it's actually going to write Clark Kent. So that's kind of cool. One of the other options is it might not look that great to have a drop down. We may want to change this to the button selector, in which case then now we can just select Spider-Man, Batman, Wonder Woman, etc. And you have all the other options of whether you want to make it so you can choose multiple, or whether you have to choose. Where are we? You can choose up to 2, something like that. So you can't choose more than 2. All of those other options, and you can also do expressions where you change the values based on other values. So you may only want to make this appear if you select a certain box or something like that. But yeah, if we save that and we go to our public form link, you'll see we have those options, and they're being loaded dynamically from the back end. Now, another option, what you might want to do is for the CSV, is we can go back to our webhook, which was under apps, webhooks, go back to our code. Here we could use the API, or we could use Axios or a fetch to go and load our CSV and then reformat it into the options. But basically what you want is just the actions to return you back an array of the options that they can pick. So if your CSV does that, then that's fine. If it doesn't, yeah, you can use this as like an in-between so that you can load the data in here and then format it and then send it back.